Afternoon and welcome to a special Eye on Northeast Kansas. Today we are focusing our entire discussion on the recent violence we've seen in the city of Topeka and expanding the time beyond our usual half hour because this is such a big issue and concern. This is not the sort of record the city of Topeka is bragging about. The most homicides the capital city has recorded in a single year. The first two in the first 8 days of 2023, the next 3 in a fatal fire, and 2 more before the month of January was done. More recently, the month of October, starting with 5-year-old Zoe Felix, then 3 teenagers and 4-year-old Laurencia Perez-Belair, all in the following week. And just this week, the 33rd homicide victim killed in a wreck caused by a driver who police say had just fled a traffic stop. So where do we go from here? It is a very complex issue, and you can see that we have a large group here today to give many perspectives on some potential answers and solutions and suggestions for how we move forward. We begin our conversation with our public safety professionals. They are tasked with responding to these crimes, investigating them, and also working toward prevention. Topeka Police Chief Brian Wheelis, Shawnee County Sheriff Brian Hill, and Washburn University's Police Chief Chris Enos are all here. Thank you, gentlemen, for starting this discussion today. And much of it does start with the Topeka Police Department, Chief Wheelis. Is there anything, when you've seen this record, first of all, how concerning is it to you in addition to the entire community?
Well, it's very concerning, and everywhere you go, you hear conversations about it, and that's why those conversations are so important, and why today, what we're doing today is important. We see trends, but as your opening highlighted, the biggest trend that we've never really seen before in the capital city is kind of marking the trends that we see across the nation, which is youth crime, both as victims and as offenders. And that is something that we haven't seen traditionally, even when the numbers have been higher in regards to violent crimes in the city. And that's very concerning on a number of levels. The good part about it, though, is it also highlights the importance of the law enforcement programs we have that are mentorship and guidance, like school resource officers. It highlights the amazing partnerships that we have with USD 501. It also highlights all the law enforcement partnerships that we have. So I think in the short amount of time that I have, I just want to reassure the community that there is a tremendous amount of collaboration and communication that's going on behind the scenes. The law enforcement partners that we have here today have many more law enforcement partnerships at the state and federal level that are all the resources are being brought to bear to suppress these crimes and investigate the ones that we have. Is
there anything that links anything together? They seem to run the gamut. We've had shootings, we had the fire, young people, older people.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, traditionally, historically, we see trends. Domestic violence is always a trend. That includes abuse of children and neglect of children. Recently, in the last couple of years, we've seen trends that involve safe handling and responsible gun ownership, securing firearms so that children don't have access to them and tragedy doesn't occur. Beyond that, we always have the traditional thing of instructing our youth and all of our citizens to make good, smart choices in their associations and their activities. We see a higher rate of victimization on people involved in criminal activity and use of drugs and sale of drugs, etc.
Sheriff, in addition to the partnerships the chief mentioned, what concern does this bring up for you when you see a trend like this in the city limits? Criminals don't exactly know where the city-county line is. So what do you notice and take note of when you see these trends?
We see an uptick in drug crimes. Honestly, out in the county, we've had a trending down in Part 1 crimes. That's continued even through this. It's very important to me as sheriff to partner with the Topeka Police Department and Chief Wheelis to address these concerns. I've seen more narcotics trafficking, just the sheer number and volume of seizures that we get. You can tell that it is prevalent just by the price of narcotics.
What concern does that raise, though? Because when you see the drug crime, what is at risk of following?
Well, I just think the narcotics impact a wide gamut of crimes, including the domestic violence. A lot of the shootings and robberies traditionally have been drug-induced crimes. A lot of the thefts and things along that nature are drug-induced crimes. So I really do think the uptick of narcotics flooding our communities is having an impact negatively on law enforcement.
How does that put everybody else at risk? Because even if you aren't somebody who's involved in drugs yourself, if other people are, what could that mean for you?
Well, I think you're going to have to be on alert and always be aware of your surroundings and take the precautions that all of us should probably be doing. And I think here in law enforcement, we've done a tremendous job partnering with our partners throughout the county. The Shawnee County Drug Task Force. Chief Wheelis has put a lot of resources into that as well, and us trying to combat some of that. So, yeah, it's a continuing issue, and you know, the education and the preventative side of that has to be addressed. So.
A lot to talk about there. Chief Enos, who talks about education and prevention. What concerns does this raise on the Washburn campus? While the campus itself has not been the scene of any of these incidents, the area around the campus certainly has been.
Well, Washburn's a community within a community, right? And so we are impacted, even if it's not directly. We experience the same things that other people in Topeka do. We live here, we work here, and so when those incidents happen, especially close to the campus, it has an impact on the feeling of safety, right? We have an amazing team that works around the clock to maintain a safe campus, and then when there are incidents near the campus, we work with our city and county partners to be a part of that solution. So,
what resources are available on campus for students to ensure their safety?
So we have an amazing police department that's staffed 24/7 on all 3 of our campuses, and Washburn Tech and Tech East, as well as the main campus, obviously. We have a communications center that's there to answer their calls, their texts, all hours of the day and night. We have help phones around the campus that are available for students. And then our technology on campus, our ITS department maintains an amazing camera system that helps us and our city partners. So.
Students live in the community, and the criminals, again, just like they don't know where the city-county line is,
Absolutely.
There's nothing to keep them from crossing that sidewalk.
Absolutely.
And being on campus proper. So what is your reassurance or your message to families who might be considering sending students to Washburn?
Yeah. I want them to know that we have a safe campus, right? We hear that from our campus community, and we all work to maintain that safe campus, and I think that's a really important message that they hear. But I also want to point out, Chief Wheelis has talked about youth interaction. I watched his YouTube video last week about if you have a chance to interact with youth in this community, do that, right? And I think Washburn's uniquely positioned to help with that, right? Our Shawnee County Thrives Scholarship Initiative that we're working towards, that really is to help build a path for those students that are looking to continue their education on a different lifestyle. Whether it's Washburn Tech or Washburn University, we want to be there to be that path for them. So,
do you 3 feel that Topeka is a safe city?
Absolutely. And I think that the partnership that we have, and I think the community's response to this challenging situation of crimes echoes that. But I think Chief Enos hit a big point. All of us, every single viewer that's watching, can take an opportunity to talk with kids they know, youth they know, point out how important they are, and encourage them to make safe and responsible choices for not only themselves, but to be leaders in the youth community as well. But this is absolutely a safe place to live.
Agreed?
I do, and it's important that we make sure that they know that there's that path there, right? If they're willing to take it and do the work, Washburn's there, other institutions are there to make sure they have a path. So.
Chief Enos, Chief Wheelis, Sheriff Hill, thank you all for being here and starting this discussion.
Thank you.
Law enforcement aren't the only ones who find themselves on the front lines in this fight. You'll hear how it's impacting our hospitals, mental health services, and our schools next.
Red Couch, provided and sponsored by the Furniture Mall of Kansas.
If you're craving crispy golden fries, but your bag is empty, that's a sign to check your friend's bag.
Mix and match 2 of your favorites, like a McDouble, McChicken, and even small fries for just $3.99. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
Most people look at the scene of a truck crash and just see a bad car accident.
But at Devon James, we know there's more to it. An overloaded trailer, signs of poor maintenance, or a trucking company pushing drivers beyond their limits.
If you've been injured in a crash with a big truck, you deserve to know who's responsible.
Call Devon James, the real truck lawyers. We can uncover the true cause of your crash.
And fight for the compensation you deserve. Devon James wins. Call 888-8888.
Hi, Greg Hunsicker here. Since 1951, the McElroy family has been providing the Topeka area with plumbing, heating, and air conditioning installations and service for commercial and residential properties. While inventories last, we're offering homeowners special year-end pricing on new Carrier heating and AC systems, plus financing for low monthly payments. If your current system is over 20 years old, this is the perfect time to update, so act now. Turn to the experts, McElroy's and Carrier.
How powerful is Cox Internet?
Hey, old friend. Hey, buddy.
So powerful that you can not only reminisce about the good old days.
Let's push these babies like back in the day. I'm right behind you.
but relive them too. Get Cox Internet powered by fiber from the company with America's fastest download speeds. It's internet built for tomorrow, today.
It's time to give this brew a second chance.
Make your morning with any size iced coffee, like pumpkin spice, French vanilla, or caramel for just $1.89. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
As we have talked about the violence of this past year and certainly this past month, it's clear it's affected not just those directly involved, but our entire community. The hurt has been physical in some cases, but also emotional, and many times our schools were at the center of it. Topeka Public Schools Superintendent Dr. Tiffany Anderson is here with Stormont Vale CEO Dr. Robert Kanegi and Vallejo Behavioral Health CEO Bill Persinger. Welcome to all of you.
Thank you.
And this has been tough, Dr. Anderson. When we talk about a 4-year-old and a 5-year-old, the teenagers who had just been in your system, what has the mood and atmosphere been amongst your students and your staff?
You know, it's a challenge because every student that is impacted by violence has friends, has family members within the school system. So I always say when there's violence impacting one family, it impacts every family and every school in the district. So the mood has been one in which individuals are really working to heal, I think is the best word. So a lot of mental health counseling and a lot of support systems are in place.
What sorts of discussions has it maybe sparked about how certainly schools have long been considered a safe haven for many students. Yes. We talk about the role that schools play in offering support to students and families, but what sorts of discussions has this perhaps sparked, if any, in terms of what more could you be doing? How much further can you go in maintaining that safe space, but also in helping students maintain positive direction?
Well, you know, in order for students to be at school and to feel comfortable and to do well, you really have to have a space, not only a safe space, but a place in which they feel like they'll be protected and that they know what to do when they leave the school. We're fortunate that the school itself often is a place that is a safe haven, but you know, our young people walk home. We know that a lot of the violence that's occurring is concentrated in a particular geographic block. So it's not all across Topeka, but there is a particular section of Topeka. And if you live in that section or you have family members in that section, and if you don't live in that section, but you know that you're looking at social media and seeing things, all of that can be very scary. So we have ongoing discussions about social emotional health, about safety, about what do you do if you are in fear when you're walking home. We have threat assessments that we give when things are called into us. So there are a variety of resources. We're fortunate to partner with a police department that helps us with having SROs in every school at the middle and high level, and we have our own officers that rotate through the elementary. That's another safe space to feel protected. We're also fortunate that we have virtual schools, so that if you really are afraid of just being in the community, we provide wraparound services and meet you where you are.
It's another option.
It is.
Dr. Kanegi, how is your staff? Because these traumas come to you as Topeka's Trauma Center, and your staff works on a 4-year-old patient, a 5-year-old patient, a 17-year-old, and they're seeing their kids.
Well, Melissa, you've hit right on it. So we have a level 2 trauma center. We see all the trauma for the region, and it is particularly difficult for our team when we see these young people coming through it. We are a group of professionals geared up to take care of those that have been traumatized by violence or otherwise, but the emotional toll that comes from taking care of these young people is above and beyond what we should expect. And then beyond that, really, the violence in the community, we've seen a 10% rise in the gunshot wounds, but another factor is the violence that plays out inside the hospital. So we've also seen a 50% increase year over year in the workplace violence, in patients and family members of patients acting violently toward our staff. And that takes a big toll. It's an incredible toll. And so we have increased the security at the hospital. We've added security officers. We are contemplating a second entrance through which you would have to pass through a metal detector. A number of different things. We're participating in some of the prevention opportunities in the community. And So beyond the violence that occurs in the community is this kind of societal increase in the way we interact in violent forms.
And you kind of find yourselves at the center of it.
We do, and it's not something that you might expect when you come to work to help heal and offer console others in a difficult position.
And both of you bring up mental health issues, which is where Vallejo comes in. How have you perhaps redirected your efforts to become maybe proactive instead of reactive?
You know, we've tried to take part in a lot of community conversations. It's encouraging to see people put this issue out front and center, and thank you to the television station for doing it, WIBW. But what I want to focus on for a minute is to get folks to think upstream a little bit and prevent a situation that they might be involved in by being aware of extremes, you know, in attitudes, emotions, behaviors, words that they hear people use. Watch out for extremes in yourself, for example. But when you think about your home and your family, your workplace, your school, your community groups, your social groups, I would say people have situational awareness for extremes in behaviors, what you see and what you don't see. Generally, if you see too much of something or not enough of something, there's a signal that something might not be right. So, you know, people whose moods fluctuate a lot, people whose words are concerning when you hear those, threats of violence or threats of violence against oneself, because, you know, violence is also can be turned inward. We call that a suicide attempt or a suicide. But watch for extremes in behavior. Behavior patterns that are out of character for somebody. Too much drinking and drugging and comments that would seem extreme or bizarre. Generally extremes. Too much of something, not enough of something will signal that something isn't right in your environment. So I would ask folks to be aware of that, you know, emotionally, mentally.
Do you all have enough resources to handle this kind of response, especially at this level that we've seen this past year?
For Topeka Public Schools, we have a lot of resources, but I will be the first to say you can never have enough resources to target health and wellness. We have mental health teams, so social workers and counselors. We have a number of resources through our partners, Vallejo, Family Service Guidance, Stormont. But you can never have enough resources to wrap services around young people and families. And like what has already been said, we've seen our parents and some individuals behave in ways that we really didn't see pre-COVID.
And you both see mind-body connections too as you try to study those behaviors.
Absolutely.
You know, since 2020, we've been looking at statistics from the National Bureau of Statistics, crime statistics, youth violence, domestic violence, drug use, all of those things have increased at high levels. And so I think there's certainly a correlation with what we're seeing now as a byproduct of that.
Well, we will continue to be informed and pass along when you all start some of those many new programs that have been happening over these past several years. Thank you to the three of you. From the front lines to City Hall, we will ask our local leaders about potential policies that could reverse the trends. And what about our younger generation? You'll hear that perspective next.
If you would like to know about available jobs at WIBW Television, go to WIBW.com and click on Jobs from the main drop-down menu.
It's easy to see the common signs of transmission trouble.
If your engine revs before it falls into gear.
If it seems to be switching gears for no reason.
If shifts are rough, lurching, or clunking.
Especially if you see a red or reddish-brown fluid leak.
So watch for the signs.
Because catching it early could mean repair instead of replacement.
And if you do need transmission work, be sure to call
Certified Transmission, the job done right at the right price.
Look at this. A Medicare plan with a prepaid card for healthy groceries and other expenses.
Is that from Aetna?
Yeah. Why?
I have an Aetna Medicare plan. I get a prepaid card with a monthly allowance I can use on groceries, utilities, even rent.
Really?
Yep. You should give them a call.
If you're eligible for Medicare and Medicaid, call us at 1-888-28-AETNA. We'll explain benefits you may be eligible for, like a card with a flexible monthly allowance you can use on groceries and more. Call 1-888-28-AETNA today.
Shop more, save more during NFM's Veterans Day sale.
Enjoy 50% off suggested retail on furniture, carpet, and area rugs. Get 10% off the current price on hard surface flooring. Instantly save up to $1,000 on qualifying major appliance purchases. Discover amazing deals on electronics. And get 30-month financing on furniture, flooring, select appliances, TVs, and audio. Our huge in-stock selection has something for everyone. Shop the Veterans Day sale. Plus, visit NFM for your chance to win a Tesla Model Y.
If you've been injured and think you can't afford a lawyer, think again. There's no upfront cost to hire me and my team, and absolutely no fee until we win your case.
It didn't cost me one single penny upfront to hire Mike's team after my car wreck.
It was free for Mike and his team to get started on my case. And in the end, they got me a $375,000 settlement.
If you've been hurt in a car wreck, call me. I've got this.
Call 785-444-4444.
In working to reverse the trends of violence, we might look to our local leaders to see what solutions they may offer. Topeka Mayor Mike Padilla and Interim City Manager Richard Neinstadt are here to continue the conversation. We're also joined by DJ Clark. He's president of Still Producing, which works in real estate, also mentors young adults. So thank you to the three of you for being here. As you hear this discussion, Mayor, you have a unique perspective as both someone who's now an elected official. You are a retired Topeka police officer as well. Where do you see the challenge?
Well, first off, we all know that just one homicide is one too many. And as a career police officer, it is troubling to see the rise in violence in our community. But I think we have to think about what is a reoccurring theme in many of those homicides. And one is criminal activity. There are criminal activity and bad behavior associated with drug use, drug sales, and domestic violence. A lot of it, and it has been talked about just before we came on, is how we speak to each other, talk to each other, and how we interact with our community. And I think much of it has been addressed through what we've been trying to do through the Mayor's Task Force Against Domestic Violence, and also with the YWCA's Center for Peace and Justice, and the other programs that are in the city that try to get to the root of what how that behavior was developed at an early stage or in the home. We know that the task force gave a presentation to the governing body where they made it clear that over 1,200 cases were referred to the district attorney's office in 2021. And of those, almost 800 cases were filed in those domestic violence cases. So that shows us an overwhelming increase in how we interact with each other. It's important for us to look at that seriously. We've talked about the mental health. We've talked about access to good mental health and medical attention, because oftentimes that's where people decide, well, I'm frustrated and this is how I'm going to act out.
And which is all very good, but as I asked the last group of people, it comes down to resources. And Richard, as the nuts and bolts and dollars and cents person, what needs to happen with resources in order for us to do all these things that we say would be great things to do?
Well, we need more federal dollars. We need more federal assistance. We need more state assistance. We do get assistance. As you know, we have a number of programs in-house. We deal with housing. We deal with location of people. We address homelessness, try to deal with that. And it's going to take some more local dollars also. How
do we weigh that kind of a request of our community that's already struggling to pay bills?
Well,
it's a tough one.
I'm telling you, it is a tough one. But if we don't address it and we aren't successful, then we'll have more people struggling to pay bills, because they will have been lost along the way. And it's our job as elected officials, and our job as appointed officials, as government officials, and this is something I tell every governing body I work for, our job is to give the community hope. Our job is to work on their behalf to help make tomorrow a better day than what today is.
DJ, as you listen to this discussion, DJ's 30 years old, and no offense to anyone else who's with us today, but we're all above a certain age. So when you listen to the conversation, I'm interested in your thoughts. Where is the disconnect? When we look at the teenagers who perhaps aren't making the best choices, why aren't we reaching them? What are we missing?
I think it comes down to the kids needing people to be able to talk to that they feel comfortable with. So I think that once we can figure out who the kids feel comfortable with, and we can talk to them through stuff they're going through, and then be able to let them know there are different resources out there. You know what I mean? So I think that that's a problem. I think that comes where the disconnect comes at sometimes, you know, and we do have the resources, they are there, but I think that they need to know that they're there.
How do we get that word out? And how do we identify who those people are that kids are going to listen to? Or do we just keep trying?
I don't really know what that looks like, you know, but I'm looking at, it's Still Producing. I run a real estate company here in Topeka, and we have a mentorship program where we try to mentor kids and, you know, show them what they should be doing and showing them stuff in real estate. So I think the kids just need to know that the resources are there. Now, what that may look like, I don't know. But I think that they need to know the resources are there for them.
So no matter how many times we've said it, it sounds like what you're saying is keep talking.
Correct.
Is there any particular message you guys, and yes, Richard,
Well, I would say what this young man just said is important that people ought to hear. The mayor and I, as you said, are above a certain age, everybody here. But he can communicate with an age that we can't. He can help carry the message to an age that we can't.
How would you
And
suggest?
what we can do is help provide resources to him.
And that's what I was going to ask DJ. How would you suggest they reach out to include people in your generation that maybe we're not doing right now?
I think you have to identify the people that have been in this community a long time, and then get them with people that, you know, that are doing great things in the community, regardless if they've been here or not. You know, but I think you have to identify certain people in the community where the kids can feel comfortable. Then once you identify that, then I think that you would be able to, you know, go from there and see what that looks like.
Mayor, how do we get the young people in the door?
I tell you, every opportunity that I accept invitations to many organizations to speak about this issue. And I remind everyone in that audience, they are the communicators for our community. They are the advocates for peace and justice in our city. And they need to reach out to their networks. We can't, as a city, be aware of every contact that could be made, but the mothers, fathers, uncles, aunts, grandfathers, all of them know where those kids are.
Correct.
They provide the resources day to day for housing, living, education, and they have their attention already. So use that time that you have their attention to give them the message.
Well, I appreciate the three of you sharing your thoughts and ways that we can perhaps move forward from the high view policy level to right there, boots on the ground, wherever you are in your neighborhood. If you can even reach one young person, you've made a difference. So thank you to all three of you for sharing your thoughts. The city does have many groups working in neighborhoods to drive change. You will hear from some of them next.
This might be your first car wreck, but it's not ours.
Patterson Legal Group has helped injured people recover hundreds of millions of dollars. Results matter.
Patterson Legal is the way to go. Call 431-0000.
I've been lying right here for months. There must be people enjoying live symphonic music somewhere. Thrilling concerts beyond my front door. I'm getting off this couch right now.
No, you won't.
Who's there?
Down here, I'm your real friend, the couch. You can't leave me. You'll never escape.
Avoid the dreaded fear of missing out with the Topeka Symphony. The Planets, a multimedia experience. November 4th at White Concert Hall.
No more FOMO!
We know inflation has made a lot of changes, but at the Furniture Mall, we've made some changes of our own. Introducing our Oh Yeah Extreme Values. You get a whole lot more without getting cheap.
Like this chest for $228, this daybed for $363, this sectional for $19.93, or a lounge chair for $7.99.
Make a change and come enjoy the fun of shopping here at the Furniture Mall. Oh yeah.
Kansas weather, right? Scorching summers, freezing winters, and huge temperature swings are par for the course. These extremes wreak havoc on vinyl windows, making them warp, bend, and leak. That's why Midland Exteriors installs weatherproof Infinity from Marvin fiberglass. Fiberglass is stronger than steel, so Infinity from Marvin windows don't warp, sag, or leak ever. They literally last for life. For Kansas tough windows, choose fiberglass. Call today for a free quote and save 10%.
After your car wreck, if you're not getting the results you want, call the Patterson Legal Group.
We'll treat you the way that you want to be treated and get you the results you deserve. In a wreck, need a check?
Patterson Legal is the way to go. Call 431-0000.
Issues surrounding violence are complicated, and many people, churches, and organizations are working in our communities and neighborhoods trying to get to causes and offer solutions. We get a bit of that perspective from Pastor Clarence Newton with New Life Baptist Church. He is also on the board for the Topeka Center for Peace and Justice. Also, Lamanda Broyles is the Executive Director of Topeka Rescue Mission, and Fellowship Highcrest pastor and founder of Sent Topeka, Jonathan Sublette, are our final guests today. Last but not least, because you all have been very instrumental in these discussions over the past weeks and months, and we appreciate that. Pastor Newton, you had a very good message about why this takes the entire community. What is the role of everyone in finding solutions here?
I believe the first thing is you have to work hard to build unity. To build unity, I believe when you're separated and divided, it's just easier for crime, violence, evil to set in. So we have to do the hard work of, even if it's reconciliation, instead of just letting it go on, do the hard work of reconciliation so we can come together and be one mind.
Are you seeing as much involvement in the faith community? Do we still respect faith?
That is a very good question, and I believe that a lot of our youngsters that I deal with don't, simply because of the trust issue. And that even stems from when you're going down to different places, City Hall, not the City Hall, just different places downtown to talk and to try to work things out, and you hear one thing and then something else happens and you're not able to deliver or to do what you said you were going to do. Just the trust issue starts to be broken. So the young people that I've discovered kind of feel like, well, we can't trust you either. And yeah.
So it's about rebuilding that trust.
Rebuilding, reconciliation.
Lamanda, the issue of homelessness has become very intertwined with these discussions, in particular with the Zoe Felix case, because there are some elements to homelessness that were at play in that. How challenging has your job become? What approaches have perhaps you been re-examining when it comes to reaching out to our unsheltered population?
You know, I think the biggest challenge is weighing in, looking what's happening nationally, and what's also happening locally. And it's one of those things that we're seeing an increase in numbers of people that are living on the streets, accessing the shelter, needing food. When we were talking about going upstream, trying to help families who are on the bridge of becoming homeless, we're seeing an increase in that. And so a challenge is navigating all of that and being prayerful for all of the needs that our community has, but also recognizing that TRM alone can't do this. The faith community alone can't do this. Government alone can't do this. And so I really just feel like the Lord has continued to lay on my heart, do what you can, but partner with others to do the rest.
What message would you have for the community to remind us that just because someone does not have a permanent home does not necessarily mean they're a bad person, and it doesn't necessarily mean that they are prone to violence or contributing to violence?
Sure. You know, a phrase I say oftentimes when I go to churches and speak is, not all criminals are homeless and not all homeless individuals are criminals. We can't group people in like that. But really, we shouldn't be labeling anyone. As a woman of faith, I have to look at everybody as like Imago Dei. They are made in Christ's image. And so that is not always easy to say when you see someone who has demonstrated something violent or has done something wrong. But at the rescue mission, we're there to look at the whys. Why are those behaviors happening? Why is someone exhibiting the anger? Because when you look at the root causes, some of it's loneliness, some of it is depression. And what we're seeing on the streets, also, Melissa, I've got to be honest with you, we're seeing it in the workplaces, we're seeing it in churches, mental illness, depression, loneliness, just the different kind of struggles that people have that doesn't discriminate.
The why is the big part here that I think everyone is trying to get at. And Pastor Sublette, that is pretty much literally what Sent has been doing. Fellowship Highcrest has gone, we talk about rebuilding trust, you're literally doing that by going beyond the church walls. What kind of approach have you been trying to take in the Highcrest neighborhood?
We've taken a holistic approach, which is so important. If you look at the last time our murders in the city were this high, there were a lot more of those that occurred in the Highcrest neighborhood. To this point, I believe only one has and our neighborhood is increasing in health, and so our strategy is working. One of the things I like to draw out in the holistic approach is Clemson University did a study that showed that a 1% increase in food insecurity leads to a 12% increase in violent crime. And I think we were missing things like that. There are 5 universal fears that has been studied that everyone has. And if those 5 universal fears lead to 5 universal needs, and when they're not met, anxiety goes up. And when anxiety goes up, performance goes down, motivation goes down, and behavior goes down. And so I think we have to continue looking at those things. When you talk about the trust issue, you can't build trust in time of crisis. You have to, you spend your relational credits in time of crisis. So as a church, we pay a staff member to be on the campus of our local middle school a full day every week, so that when times of crisis rise up, they already have the relational equity with our children at that school. And the same goes with housing and different things of that nature. All of our help organizations are seeing an increase in need in food, increase in need in housing. And what we're seeing is less resources, our people are more strained out. And so until we start looking at a holistic approach, I feel like we're gonna be in the same seats. As a faith community, we have done some things to diminish trust, and we have to rebuild that. And so we can't do that overnight. The way we do that is by being active, continuously doing the things we need to do outside the walls to show that it's not about butts and seats, but that everyone has infinite dignity, value, and worth.
The old Maslow's hierarchy of needs. If you're hungry, you're not going to necessarily worry about, am I really being super nice to Pastor Newton today? I need my sandwich. You know, I mean, there's truth to the hangry. We laugh about it when we say it, but it's the basic needs.
It is.
What is the one thing you each feel could be done? We only have a minute left for all 3 of you to get in. The one thing that you feel is missing that we need to address.
Again, I'm going to stay right in the vein of coming together to unite, because as Pastor said, they're having success. But guess what? When we come together and share our different resources, when we come together and are able to trust one another in here, and then we can have people looking at us and say, okay, they're together, I can trust them, we can do that.
Amanda?
I would say kindness. There's no effort that is too small. Sometimes sharing a smile, sometimes saying hello. We have lost so much of that personal interaction. Calling people by name if you can, just those personal touches where we go back to humanity and we're looking and viewing people as people.
You heard me say that the other night. They're not number 31, 32. They are Zoe and Laurencia.
Yes.
Pastor Sublette.
Continue to partner well and take a holistic approach. If you're only concentrated on what you do, you're going to steadily be fighting the upstream battle. You have to look at the big picture and then say, how can we concentrate our resources in order to make the impact that we need to make?
Well, thank you to the 3 of you. And this was just discussion today, but there are a lot of groups and resources out there to help everyone take action. Here are just a few. PARS Topeka they work with Safe Streets. They have prevention services, Vallejo's Crisis Line, Community Resources Council, TRM has their line that they have for everybody, Sent Topeka, that Jonathan has the resources for. And when it comes to getting involved, Pastor Newton said this on our news a couple of weeks ago, we all need to be involved and tell what we know. Otherwise, we can't get the criminals off the streets. So Shawnee County Crime Stoppers helps you report crime anonymously, 785-234-0007. Also, Topeka Police, tell TPD at topeka.org. Our thanks to everyone who took part in our special discussion today. All those resources will be online. Our thanks to you for watching as well, a community issue that will take all of us.
Get the latest news, weather, and sports at WIBW.com or follow WIBW on X, Facebook, and our mobile app. Thank you for making 13 News the most watched evening newscast.